Hello everyone, welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. So Genshin Impact version 2.6 is now right around the corner, and with the coming of the 2.6 livestream, we actually have quite a bit to cover. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's start with what I know is on everyone's mind, the upcoming character banners. So it actually looks like I was right. Just like I predicted in my upcoming character banners video, we're getting both of the Kamisato siblings, as well as the Anemo Archon himself, Venti. And while I know that this will please a lot of players, I know that some are going to be disappointed considering that many players were looking forward to Kazuha. However, if you are a Kazuha diehard, this actually just means that you have more time to save, considering that he'll probably be coming in the next 1 to 2 patches. So if you've already been saving and you can stay strong for this patch, you should probably have no problem guaranteeing him. However, that being said, it might be a little bit easier said than done, considering that you'll be passing up the brand new 5-star Hydro character Ayato, everyone's favorite drunken bard Venti, and one of the current queens of DPS, Ayaka. So I guess pick your poison. But this isn't a Kazuha video, so let's go ahead and shift our focus over to Ayato. The long wait is almost over. We've heard about him through other characters, and Hoyoverse has been teasing him for months, so it's really refreshing to finally see him in action. Kamisato Ayato is going to be a 5-star Hydro sword user that primarily focuses on his elemental skill and his elemental burst. Well, sort of. See, his auto attacks on their own are going to probably be pretty lackluster, but they're still going to be a pretty integral part of his kit, considering that his skill is probably going to use the damage multipliers from his normal and auto attacks, infusing his sword with Hydro so that he can deal lightning fast slashes to all enemies in range. Based on this description, I think that he's going to function very similarly to Yoimiya, since she also infuses her normal attacks when using her skill, and deals the grand majority of her damage through her auto attacks. However, unlike Yoimiya, it seems like he's going to enter a special stance, which essentially locks him in place while he deals damage. On one hand, with stationary enemies this will be very nice because you'll always be a set distance at all times. However, for very mobile enemies this could be a problem because you'll have to chase them down constantly. Hopefully this isn't too big of an issue since it does seem like the range on his skill is pretty large, but obviously it's something that we're gonna have to playtest to know for sure. His elemental skill also leaves a Hydro clone behind that will pop and deal AoE damage to all surrounding enemies. I'm hoping that it has some additional effect, but I'm not quite sure just yet, so we'll just have to wait and see. But moving on to his elemental burst, this actually looks pretty interesting. He essentially summons a huge Hydro garden that constantly procs Hydro damage and applies Hydro. However, this ult actually looks pretty similar, right? Because if you're anything like me, you instantly thought of Ganyu's ult. They seem to be a very similar size, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if they had fairly similar scalings. However, one thing that does set him apart from other characters is the fact that while inside of his ult, he's able to increase other characters' normal attack damage. And after unlocking one of his passives, it's also stated that his elemental burst will refund him energy over a set interval of time, leading me to think that he's actually going to have a fairly high cost burst, and that this is just one way to help manage it. Overall, it's actually looking like Ayato's going to be a pretty solid character, because it's looking like he's going to have decent on-field damage, and can even provide off-field Hydro application whenever he uses his burst, making it seem that he's going to be both a great on-field damage dealer, as well as a reliable sub-DPS if you want him to be. So without a doubt, I'm actually really excited for Ayato, and can't wait to summon for him in 2.6. But that's not all that 2.6 has to offer in the first half, because not only are we getting Ayato, but we're also getting Venti right alongside him. Now, I have to be honest, this really threw me for a loop, because while I did predict that he would be in this patch, I didn't think that he would be right alongside Ayato. It's honestly kind of weird that they're pairing Venti with a brand new character, instead of placing him alongside another rerun. I fully expected him to be alongside Ayaka, or whoever else was going to be on the reruns. So of course this flared up my brain into thinking why they did this, and I think it came down to 2 main reasons. The first reason that I can think of is that Ayaka sold so well during her first banner that Hoyoverse really wants to have her alone so that they can maximize her sales. And since they don't know how popular Ayato will be, they decided to run Venti alongside him. The second reason I think that they might be doing this is because Kazuha might be right around the corner. I could be wrong and this is purely speculation, but something's telling me that right at the beginning of patch 2.7, Kazuha's gonna drop. I have nothing to support this, but it does make sense to me that they wouldn't want to put Venti and Kazuha right back to back, so by placing Venti in the first half might be giving them a little bit of breathing room. But hey, I could be reading into things. But whatever case may be, Venti is still one of the best support units in Genshin Impact, and while he may be a little bit lower on the meta tier list compared to Kazuha, when dealing with hordes of light and small enemies, Venti is definitely still the king. In fact, since he launched and till this very day, I do think that Venti is the best crowd controller in Genshin Impact. And with the recent changes that Hoyoverse made to enemies' weights, Venti has started to see a lot more use in Spiral Abyss again. It's also important to note that for new players especially, Venti is such a great pickup because not only is he a strong character in general, but since all of his materials can be found in Mondstadt, you'll have no problem building him right from the very beginning, which in my opinion would make the game a lot more enjoyable compared to picking an Inazuma character which could take months to level up and build, considering that you have to beat most of the content in Mondstadt in Liyue in order to get to Inazuma in the first place. So I urge new players to please keep that in mind before you decide to summon. However, even if you are an older player, Venti is still an amazing pickup, and even if you already have a character like Sucrose or Kazuha, it's always nice to have another Anemo Swirler / crowd controller, since for Spiral Abyss you do need 2 separate teams, and all 3 of these characters are integral to a lot of team building. Alright, and one last thing that I do want to mention about Venti is that his constellations aren't really necessary. In fact, he functions perfectly at C0, so if you are free to play or a low spending player, know that you only really need 1 copy of him and you're good to go. So overall, Venti is a great pickup if you don't already have him. Alright, and moving on to the second half of the patch, we have Kamisato Ayaka herself. To say that Ayaka is popular would definitely be an understatement, and I think it comes down to a few key factors. One, Ayaka was definitely one of the most hyped characters in Genshin Impact history, because we knew about her from the very beginning considering that she was in the closed beta, and hype only continued to grow until she eventually came out. And luckily, upon her release, she definitely didn't disappoint. While I'm personally not an Ayaka main, I have to admit that she is one of the most well-balanced and powerful characters that Hoyoverse has released in a very long time. In fact, compared to just about every other Inazuma 5-star, I think that Ayaka has had the least complaints out of all of them. I think this is because her kit is very well balanced, because her normal and charge attacks are very powerful without being too powerful, well, unless you have her C6. Her elemental skill has high damage scaling but is very simple to use, and her elemental burst is probably one of the most powerful that we've seen, because while each slash doesn't deal a lot of damage individually, it does hit enemies up to 20 times, meaning that any enemy that doesn't have a lot of HP is just going to be obliterated. I personally think, and a lot of people would probably agree with me, that Ayaka is one of the top damage dealers that we currently have available. I would say that her only real competition right now is Ganyu, Hu Tao, and maybe even C2 Raiden, which should probably tell you everything that you need to know in terms of total damage output. And unlike a lot of 5-stars, she isn't reliant on her constellations in order to deal a lot of damage. In fact, I think that she's really powerful at C0. However, if you do want to go for her constellations, they do make her pretty insane, because her constellations 2, 4, and 6 really spike her damage through the roof. However, as I just mentioned, if you are a low spender or free to play, know that her C0 is more than enough. Alright, and for now that's all that we have in terms of characters. I am planning on making a pre-release analysis video for Ayato, as well as are they worth it videos for both Ayaka and Venti, so if you don't want to miss those, make sure that you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on. That way you won't miss them as soon as they go live. Okay, but luckily 2.6 does have more in store for us than just characters, because not only are we getting a new Archon quest, but we're also finally getting to explore the Chasm. If you've been playing for a while, you'll know that the Chasm has been teased basically since the very beginning of Genshin Impact. If you quickly take a look at the leftmost side of the map, you'll actually come to realize that the name the Chasm has been there the whole time. There has been a lot of mystery surrounding this location, and there have been fake leaks left and right saying that it was coming way earlier than it actually was. So it's refreshing to finally see Hoyoverse officially announce that it's coming in the next patch. And luckily, it looks like it's not going to disappoint. It's looking like this area is going to be very similar to Dragonspine and Konomiya and the Golden Apple Archipelago, meaning that there's going to be a fairly large area to explore, lots of treasure to be found and puzzles to be solved, and of course, new enemies to be fought. I'm actually getting pretty nervous about this mechanical snake, but hopefully it won't be too much of a nightmare to fight. It's also been quite a while since we've last seen Dainsleif, so the fact that he's coming back into the story when we reach the Chasm probably means that this area is going to have some significance to the plot moving forward. While I don't know if there'll be any groundbreaking secrets revealed, I do definitely think that there's going to be some history here, and that we might learn a little bit more about Khanriya's technology. Either way, I'm pretty excited to see Dainsleif again and get one step closer to finding our sibling. Also big news, like a lot of people speculated, there is going to be a new artifact domain, and honestly this is such a big win for all Xiao fans. Yes, that's right, he's finally getting a designated artifact set, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty massive spike to his overall damage. Because not only do you get the 18% attack buff from the 2-piece set, but when you do have the 4-piece set, whenever you use a character's burst and their health decreases, they'll get an additional 10% attack that stacks up to 4 times. So when you have all stacks up during their burst, you'll be getting an additional 58% attack. Besides Thrilling Tales and Bennett and Kujisara's buffs, this is the single biggest boost to attack that you can currently get. And since Xiao has the highest base attack of all characters in the game, he's the one that's going to scale the best from this. He's also the only character besides Hu Tao that can actively decrease his own health, so it's without a doubt that this is a set that was specifically designed for him. It remains to be seen if this will put him on par with other main DPS units, but it's definitely looking positive. And as for the other artifact set, it also has a 2-piece effect that does increase your attack by 18%, but its 4-piece set makes it so that any time that a normal attack hits an enemy, you have a 36% chance to increase your normal attack damage by 70%. It does look like the damage increase does disappear after you do hit an enemy with your increased stats, but getting an extra 70% normal attack damage per every few hits looks like it might actually be pretty crazy on a few characters. The main two that I'm currently thinking of are obviously Ayato and Yoimiya, since the entirety of their kit revolves around normal attack damage. However, I think that this could also be really interesting on characters like Ayaka, especially if you have a character like Shenhe in order to boost their normal attack damage even further. It remains to be seen just how good either of these two sets will be, so there definitely needs to be playtesting before we get too excited, but overall I think that these are looking very promising and could make a few characters even more powerful than they originally were. Oh, and unlike 2.5, it looks like we're actually getting a whole lot of events in 2.6. Unlike 2.5, which had one major event over the span of the entire patch, since it seems like it's going to be a festival season in Inazuma, it looks like we're actually getting a lot more events this go round, which is great because it'll keep us busy and of course means more primos. And while I don't want to go over each and every one of them, there are a few that are sticking out that I do want to talk about. First, let's get the elephant out of the room. Yes, you are seeing correctly, we are going to get a free Xiao, so you'll definitely want to complete the Hues of the Violet Garden event in order to make sure that you can get him. Xiao is easily one of the best 4-star characters in Genshin Impact currently, and just getting one copy of him can be account changing, since the only other 4-star Hydro character currently is Barbara. And even if you do already have him but you don't have all of his constellations, every single Xiao constellation is a good one, so anything that gets you closer to that C6 is definitely a huge win. The other big event that's coming back that I'm actually super excited for is Theater Mechanicus. This is definitely one of the most innovative gameplay modes that Genshin Impact has ever introduced, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it every single time that it's been available. The entire event is completely based around elemental reactions and placing turrets in order to deal a lot of damage to your enemies before they can escape through a portal on the other side of the map. It'll put your elemental reaction knowledge to the test and is really fun both in single player mode and in co-op mode. So if you have met all of the requirements in order to play the event, I definitely recommend checking it out. There also looks like there's going to be a brand new combat trial that honestly looks somewhere in between the Energy Amplifier event and the Hyaku in Iki, which is currently live in patch 2.5. So for those that like combat-based content, this is definitely one for you. There's also an event where you can only use Traveler while fighting different swordsmen, another flower decorating event, another photo event, and another food-based event. So this go round, it really looks like there's a little bit of something for everyone. And unfortunately, as we got closer and closer to the end of the livestream, it became very apparent that there's going to be no new news about Sumeru, and no new news in terms of Dendro units. So we'll probably have to wait until patch 2.7 or 8 for any news on that. Alright, and that just about covers everything that's coming in patch 2.6. If you did end up enjoying the video, please feel free to leave me a like and comment down below. Let me know what you're currently thinking about patch 2.6. Is it a whole lot? Is it too little? Or is it just the right amount of content? I'm pretty curious to see what you guys are thinking. And like I mentioned earlier, I am planning on making videos for Ayato, Venti, and Ayaka, so if you don't want to miss those, make sure that you have your notifications turned on and make sure you're subscribed. But that's all for now, so until next time, best wishes. Bye!